Welcome back, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt. Governor Doug Burgum was on the stage last night. He joins me now. Good morning, Governor. How are you?
Good morning, Hugh. Great to be with you.
Now, I have got my wife's best friend has torn 2 Achilles tendons playing basketball. And I know you did that 2 nights ago. And the first thing I want to know, and the most important thing, is your wife mad at you for doing that?
She was very understanding, I'd say, beyond human expectation. She knows I love playing, and she didn't even give me that glance of, hey, I told you so. Maybe this wasn't a great idea right before this debate.
Well, Governor, I got to ask you, you're my age. What in the world are you doing playing basketball? It's like that is not the game for people our age. I mean, we can go out and golf, run, swim, do all, but you're jumping up and down. What in the world are you doing?
Well, Hugh, I've played basketball my whole life, and it's a great way to unwind. And my son, my 30-year-old son, was there, and we had some gym space at a local university that has a great basketball program. I thought it would be kind of historic to, shoot around there. And we're just
you're definitely the first guy with a torn Achilles tendon in a Republican presidential debate. I got to tell you that. Governor, I want to ask you about, everyone's got a million debate stories. I've moderated 4 of those things, and I got 20 stories out of each of them. So I want to know, first of all, it's kind of a rodeo, but it's not your first rodeo. You're from North Dakota, after all. What'd you think of the whole Lollapalooza debate stuff?
Well, I'd say, Hugh, honest assessment, it took me through the first 30-minute segment to figure out that no one was going to follow any of the rules that we've been told ahead of time. So it was, barely get a word in edgewise, but then we fought our way back, and staying with a sports analogy, I felt like we won the fourth quarter. We finally got into some substance. There was a lot of noise, and I don't think enough signal for the American public, for the voters that are trying to decide. And also, we've got these huge issues. China is a massive issue. We've got, we're in a Cold War with China, and we're in this war with Russia. And I just felt we didn't spend enough time on that. And of course, as you know, I feel these things are completely and totally tied to both our economy and the Biden energy policies, which are 180 degrees in the wrong direction.
Now, Governor, you got to be honest with me here and tell me what you think of Vivek. Because I call it the Vivek debate. He got 1,000 spears in him, but he basically won the attention game. And there are 2 games. Do you persuade people to support you for president in Iowa and New Hampshire? And do you win the attention game and get small donors? Vivek got a lot of attention, but you've done what he did. You succeeded in business far beyond what he did. You built this company, which nobody knows about because they didn't have any time to do bio last night. What are you thinking about when you watch all the attention to Vivek and you're standing over on the other end saying, well, I did all that, and then I run a state for 7 years?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just interesting because I think as someone that came from the outside into government, I think there's real benefit because coming in as an outsider, particularly with the background I had, which actually had to do with business operations and with, the business processes that allow you to serve customers better with less inputs. And I'm saying that because that's what government does. I mean, we said in North Dakota, we're going to treat the taxpayers like customers. And we came in and we took $1.7 billion out of a $6 billion budget, 27% cut, and all the trains ran on time. So there's business guys, and then there's business guys that have been in other business, whether it's, real estate or biotech. It's not the same as someone who's, all of our customers were small business, all of our partners were small businesses. And then at the end, I had a chance to run really large businesses at scale. And there's just so much of that that's directly applicable to what's going on. And so when I hear someone say, hey, they're going to cut the Department of Education, which I would too, but that's 4,000 out of 2 million employees. The real win is taking 20% out of every job. It's not shooting a department in the head. It's going in and saying the whole thing is inefficient. I mean, I met some guys again last night, and I said, I was being interviewed in the spin room, and I said, how many apps do you think you have in your phone? And, most people would say 150 or more. I said, do you have any apps from the federal government? And they're all like, no, I don't. I mean, so it's like there's just the way that people are interacting and using technology today with a supercomputer in their pocket. They don't even think, like, why am I not relating to government this way?
So do you know what I can't understand, Governor? I'm going to put a bug in your ear. We have allegedly a teacher's crisis in America. We allegedly have a teacher. We don't have enough teachers. They can't find jobs. Districts are scrambling. Why isn't the Department of Education running one website that says, here's every vacancy in America, Here's what the class is. Here's what you'll be paid. And here are the coaching duties you can take on. Will you call this person and get your application in? Why do we not have that? This is like 2024.
Exactly, Hugh, exactly. And this is the kind of thing where if you, coming from the private sector where I was working, and then coming into government, these kinds of opportunities are laying on the ground. This is like fruit that's fallen off the tree. You can attack in any direction with 100 ideas like this that cost very little, but actually make government more efficient. So you're spot on.
Now, do you mind if I quiz you a little bit? Because we didn't get to the Commander-in-Chief test last night. Okay, the Commander-in-Chief test, which Chairman Mike Gallagher of the Select Committee on China says this is the most important thing about debates, which is, do you learn anything about how someone will react on 9/11? W was magnificent on 9/11. He was even better when we meet in the middle moment of our grief at the National Cathedral. There are times that you need the Commander-in-Chief to go into the Situation Room, bark at people, get down to 6. I'm reading a biography of Nimitz, and he really was a Commander-in-Chief of the fleet at full tide. So I'd like to know whether you can do this. And it's not intended to ambush you. I'd just like to know if you're up to speed on this stuff. Is it okay with you?
Sure.
Why did we collapse in Kabul? What went wrong in the last... We're 2 years ago, greatest foreign policy fiasco of my lifetime occurred, and that includes Vietnam in Kabul. What happened there in your view?
Well, I think one thing was a failure of intelligence because, as much as, Biden was just saying, hey, we've got to get out of here, and I've got a date in mind, which is the 20th anniversary of 9/11, and I think I'm going to win some political points by getting out by that time. I'm sure he had some people that told him, hey, if you do this, the Taliban is going to just stay in the country. They're not going to come in. Bagram Air Force Base will be fine. I mean, it was a massive, massive failure on had to be a whole series of people, but him in particular. And this one offends me personally. We were getting ready for the 20th anniversary of 9/11 as the Commander-in-Chief of the North Dakota National Guard. We had lost 29 lives during the War on Terror. So we had invited all the Gold Star mothers to come to an event that was coming up. So 2 weeks before that, then Biden's doing this, atrocious withdrawal, costing us tens of billions of dollars, opening up the way for China to come in like the next week and start taking over rare earth mineral development in Afghanistan to further, build themselves as the EV battery superpower of the world that Biden wants to buy all the batteries for our EVs that we're subsidizing from. And then what do you say? These Gold Star mothers are like, look, we thought that our son died for a cause that mattered. That's what their belief was. Biden shattered that. It is unforgivable what he did to all of those families. And this is just one little lens of that in our small state where these North Dakota National Guard troops on active duty died in Afghanistan, and then he does this. I mean, it's just unthinkable to me.
Governor, have you had a chance? I don't know. You're on the road a lot. I don't know if you have a chance to read, but if you can read one book, I hope it's this one, Kabul by Jerry Dunleavy and James Hassan. Have you heard about it yet?
I haven't, but I'll write it down right now.
Yeah, Kabul, it's on bestseller lists. It just came out 2 weeks ago, and it is the definitive account of the fiasco that is Joe Biden's. I mean, the reason he cannot be president again is because he simply, as Robert Gates said, he hadn't been right in 50 years on any major issue of foreign affairs. Let me ask you about the suicide problem. Are you familiar with the fact that 30,000 vets of the 20-year war have taken their own life upon the return to the United States? What is going on there, and what would you do as the commander-in-chief to stop that?
Well, this is something we've put a huge amount of attention in North Dakota, but I know nationally. I mean, to get to the number you're talking about, I think it tracks. Sadly, today is Thursday. There'll be another 22 veterans that complete suicide today. That's what sort of the running tally is, and this has to be a full-on effort. I mean, we have a mental health crisis in America. We spend $4 trillion on health care, but it's not really health care. We spend it on sick care primarily, and most of that, the last 6 months, end of life. And we're not doing anything on the preventative side, and we really don't treat mental or behavioral health sometimes as a health issue. It's like, suck it up, you're going to be fine kind of approach. And we just have to completely flip it where it's much more effective to spend the dollars upstream on prevention and education than it is spending it when we've got people in acute crises on the back end. You won't be able to build enough behavioral health hospitals, but we got to move those dollars upstream. And part of it then again is community awareness. It's leadership in North Dakota National Guard, making sure that everybody understands the signals, and then also changing the stigma. And this is something the First Lady, she struggled with addiction for over 2 decades, has been in recovery, and now as First Lady of North Dakota has been courageous in sharing her story of addiction and recovery, because we have to normalize the conversation. If you think that mental health, behavioral health, and addiction, which are often co-occurring, and they're co-occurring almost 100% among homeless, that if people want to hide in the closet about the fact that they're dealing with the disease of addiction, which is a brain disease, we know that now, then they don't get treatment. If someone's got diabetes, they get treated. If they have cancer, you get treated. Someone's got a mental or behavioral health issue, and then they hide it even from their family members. And so if the stigma is so high, we can't even treat it. So across the board, we need a different approach. And it's, and it's related, some of this is 70% of the overdose deaths under Biden. We've had 4 Vietnams worth of deaths that have occurred just in the time that Biden's been in office of overdoses in this country. And but 70% of those were fentanyl poisoning. So some of those aren't overdoses the way we think about an addict that was, dealing with addiction, that was trying to get treatment and then, couldn't get over the hump. Some of this is the people that, they buy one Percocet on the street for $30 and it's got fentanyl in it.
I know of someone who did that. I know a grieving family from that. One pill. Governor, now we've spent more time talking, and I want to keep you after the break to land this plane. So if the music comes up, don't go anywhere. Give me 5 more minutes. Neither of these issues came up last night. The collapse in Afghanistan and the suicide among veterans. Neither of them came up. That is a feature, not a bug, of presidential debates. How would you fix presidential debates? Because Brett and Martha are the best. They're the equal of anyone. But there isn't any time or seriousness.
No, there's none. And that's why I said earlier, it's, a lot of noise and not much signal. And I think I'm sad for the American public because I feel like in some cases, people are, I don't know why we call them a debate. I mean, call it political theater, call it what it is, but these are not serious policy discussions. My
last question is, I don't know what the rules are for round 2. Do you know if you have qualified for round 2?
We've qualified for everything. There was 50,000 donors. There was above a certain polling threshold in primary states, and then also a national poll threshold number. And we've qualified for everything, but we need to get above 3% in a national poll.
And do you think you'll make that?
Yeah, absolutely, we will.
All right. Now, if that is the case, how would you like the format to change? For example, should there be an audience in the room? Should there be 1 moderator as opposed to 2? Should there be 3 instead of 2? How would you, Doug Burgum, as a businessman and executive, and your credentials are stellar, but you're not going to survive 3 rounds with those rules?
No, well, I'm certainly intending on surviving, but I think that, I'm focused more on the voters, more on the American public. I mean, they need to actually have an opportunity to hear kinds of questions that you're asking, Hugh. I mean, your commander-in-chief questions and others. And as you noted, I mean, I got more time to cover those 2 topics than the entire 8 of us did last night. So I think the live audience, again, when you're just chasing cable ratings, then, live audience maybe adds something to that. But of course, then you have all the issues of people stacking the audience, doing different things. I think it was difficult sometimes I know for sure people in the audience, and sometimes I think for the candidates on the stage to be even able to hear when the moderators were asking questions over the top of trying to keep things going when people are yelling. So that again is all, political theater and maybe interesting, but it's not helping advance anybody's understanding of the key issues.
So my last question. Do you think we're serious about electing the best person to be president of the United States? As a country, I'm not talking about Fox News. I'm not talking about radio and television or the spin room. As a country, are we serious about this?
I would have to say that there's been there's a misconception about what it takes to actually do the job. You understand it. You saw it under President Nixon, President Reagan. You've been there. You've been in the room. You understand what it takes to do that. And I think that some of these things are not just popularity contests. We've, moved in this era of celebrity presidents, and there is a disconnect from an understanding or a process. And I think, neither party has got a process which is delivering. And all you have to say is, look, if you have a country of 340 million people, and then I'll say 8 people applied or 12 people applied for the job. When I was in the private sector, if we had the most important job in a company, like if I was chairman of the board and we're hiring a CEO, and we had a dozen people applied and some of them weren't qualified, we'd repost. We'd be like, whoa, did we forget to advertise in the right places? We should have a bigger pool. So I think there's a candidate quality and a candidate size pool where people have this. The narrative is like, oh, this is a really crowded field, but oh my goodness, this is the most important job in the world. And you're, when I'm standing up there last night, I'm like, absolutely, I belong on this stage, and we're going to keep fighting to make sure we win this job.
Governor, keep coming back. I appreciate the time this morning, and I hope the injury heals. Put down the basketball, Governor, because you don't want the second one to go. Great to have you. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you, Hugh.